We're looking at the seventh commandment, and I'm going to take a little different step on this. I'm stepping on faith on this one. I've talked about it before, so I don't want to talk about the same thing that I've talked before about the whole thing. So I'm going to go a little bit different direction on this. But let's take a look here at Exodus chapter 20, verse 14, so we can see what the seventh commandment is. You shall not commit adultery. Now, adultery is mutual sex with another person while you're married. Okay? Sexual immorality is mutual sex with another when you're not married. These two sins are mentioned the most in the Bible. Adultery and sexual immorality are two of the sins that are mentioned the most. And probably because of the damage that they can do, especially adultery. Especially idolatry. Now, sex is a strong appetite. A strong appetite that God put on it. He gave us a strong appetite for food, a strong appetite for water to sustain us, and He gave us a strong appetite for sex to multiply the earth. But it wasn't just to multiply the earth. It was more than just multiplying the earth. But I want to take a look. Remember what I said, when you look at the Old Testament, you have to look at the New Testament to see what Jesus says, because Jesus is a fulfillment of the law. So let's take a look first at Matthew 5, 27 and 28. And you're familiar with these verses. Jesus said, you heard that it was said, do not commit adultery. Having sex outside of marriage. With someone that's when you're married. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman or a man lustfully has already committed adultery with them in his heart, her heart. Just lust alone, wanting to do it, Jesus said, you've already committed adultery. It's kind of like, and I've used this example before with you. If there's a young couple, a young teenage couple in a living room, and they're planning on having sex, and they're fully planning on having it, and all of a sudden the headlights come on the driveway, and mom and dad are coming home, so they don't. So we never had sex, but the intent was there. So what Jesus is saying is, if you have the desire, you've already committed adultery in your heart. And that's what God looks at in the heart. It's no different when you give your life to the Lord. You can give the life to the Lord with your head saying, well, I don't want to go to hell, I want to go to heaven. Or you can do it with your heart where it's kind of like, oh, God, I don't want to hurt you. I want you to be a part of my life. That's the heart. That's what God looks at, is the heart. So, let's take a look at this. But I'm not going to look at the lust part. I'm going to look at the adultery itself part. Okay? Let's look first about, He gave us a strong appetite, but it wasn't just to multiply the earth. Let's look at Genesis 2:18, where God tells us this. The Lord God said, it is not good for man to be alone. So I'm going to make a helper suitable for him. And then we look at Proverbs 31, 10 through 12. And it says this, a wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. A wife is worth far more than even jewels. Having a spouse is extremely important in God's eyes. Extremely important. But just like we read last week with murder, that, gosh, the very first family that God creates, they commit murder. The very first family. And now we come to adultery, and we see adultery was prevalent at the beginning. It was prevalent. It was all over the place. I just heard a story this morning of a young boy in our church that reads the Bible on his own. And he was reading the story about Lot and his daughters. And he was telling his parents, they just did some stupid things, Mom. Well, Lot's daughters got him drunk so that they could have sex with him so they could have children. It was just kind of like, whoa. David, who God said, a man after my own heart. I love David. And yet David cheated with Bathsheba. He didn't just cheat with Bathsheba, he also committed murder. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the story. He's the king. He's in his castle, up highest up, and he's looking down over at another building, and he's seeing Bathsheba take a bath, and she's enticing to him. So he sends for her. And she's married, so she doesn't want anything to do with it, but he forces himself on her. And then she becomes pregnant. So he doesn't want to take the blame for it, so he calls her husband, who's in the war, the front lines, to come home, thinking he will sleep with her, and then they'll think it's his baby. But when he comes back, he refuses to sleep with his wife while all his fellow soldiers are out there dying. So he just stays outside the house. So David's going, wow, this ain't working. So he sends Bathsheba's husband to the front lines, knowing that he will be killed, which is what happened. And then God was a man after my own heart. Adultery has been going on from the very beginning, just like murder was. I know when you read the Bible, you read plenty of it in there. What about today? What about today? How serious is it today? Surveys. Now, I have done a vast study of this. I've been studying my wife was like, are you going to study it again? It's kind of like, yeah, there's so many surveys, so I'm trying to take all of that information and condense it. And surveys say, which is just unbelievable to me, that as many as 72% of married men cheat on their wives. 72% cheat on their wives. 70% of women cheat on their husbands. 70%. It's like, I read that, it can't be. That can't be. And it says 2/3 of the spouses are unaware that their spouse is cheating. And the average length of an affair is like 2 years. We've become good at it. And it's kind of like, is that really the way it is out there? Is that really the way it is? Is that God's intent? Is that the way it's supposed to be? Now, we just heard what Jesus said, that's adultery. Now, Jesus said if you lust, you're already committed adultery. If 70% are actually doing adultery, I bet you the other 30% close to them are thinking about it. Wow. Wow. That's why I didn't want to talk about this, but when I'm reading this, it's just kind of like, it has to be talked about. I've been in 5 major churches, and in all 5 of them, a pastor had affairs outside of marriage. 5 major churches that you are all familiar with in this area right here. And in all 5 of them that I've been involved with, the pastor cheated on his wife. And what's unfortunate, they cheated with another married woman in the church. Because what we're finding is most affairs happen with people that both people know. So it's kind of like, wow. I don't know, years ago, some of you probably don't remember this, a man named, evangelist, TV evangelist named Jimmy Baker. Jimmy and Tammy Baker. Jimmy, I can handle, Tammy. Anyway, Jimmy Baker cheated on his wife. Another televangelist, Jimmy Swaggart, was just like putting him down major. He needs to be removed from ministry. I can't believe, and the whole time we're finding out Jimmy Swaggart is having an affair at the same time. And these are television evangelists. These are the ones that got the big ratings that everybody, millions and millions of people watch. It's kind of like, wow. Wow. When I first got married, my wife and I, we got involved in a group called Marriage Encounter. I was still in the Catholic Church at that time. And we were with 6 other couples. There were 7 of us, 7 couples I used to meet on like every 2 weeks. And I've shared this with you before. They all looked at me and my wife like, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell of making it. We would walk in, not even coming together. We wouldn't even be sitting together. I'd be over there, she'd be over there. They're all these lists, I don't want to use your wife. They're all holding hands and looking into one another's eyes, and Lynn and I looking at one another, like, whoa. We just kind of looked at them like, how the heck do they do that? How do they do that? I can't do that. They're so fancy. No. Listen to this. All 6 of those couples ended up cheating on one another. All 6 of them got divorced. All 6 of them. And here's my wife and I. Oh, why? Why? Well, I want to find out why now, okay? I'm going to change gears now, okay? This is the least amount of Bible verses I've ever used now, okay? I'm going to look at reasons why people do this, and then try to help us to undo this. Because we would be naive to think that collision is excluded.
Yeah, right. Right.
I don't want to hear any comments because it might be a Jimmy Swaggart. Those are you. So listen to this, okay? Listen to this. I'll start with the men first. 6 reasons that I looked at all of them and condensed the 6 of them that were just over and over repeated in all the different surveys. And we come to find out, first of all, that men cheat for sexual reasons. Women cheat for emotional reasons. Okay? It's kind of like I told you before. Women need a reason to have sex. Men need a place. So let's look at why men cheat, first of all. Number 6, because there's so little sex in their marriage. When they first got married, they were like rabbits. And now all of a sudden, there's very little sex in marriage. Very little sex in marriage. Next one. She cheated. So I have an out-of-jail card, a free card to cheat. Because she did. Number 4. Guys still want to know that they're still a man. That I'm still a man. There's people out there that find me attractive. There's people out there that still want what I got. Number 3, they couldn't say no to an advance. If a woman and boy, it's a totally different world now than when I grew up. When I grew up, no girl ever asked a guy out. That was unheard of. Now girls ask guys out all the time. It's totally different now today. So women make advances on men. Men are not very good at saying no to those advances. It's just kind of like, whoa, she wants me. Number two reason, the wife has kind of lost it. No offense here now. Maybe gained weight, doesn't wear the makeup, dresses a little sloppier. It's kind of like I saw on Facebook a posting of this woman that just got married. And she goes like this, puts the ring on. Thank God, now I can let myself go. It's kind of like guys when you come home from with your suit and tie on and you get home and you just can't wait to get that tie and suit coat off. Well, women, when you get all dressed up, you get home, you can't wait to get out of that girdle. They still wear girdles? You can't wait to get out of those tight clothes to put your house coat on, right? Number 1 reason, I don't love her anymore. I just don't love her anymore. Those are the 6 reasons why men, not enough sex, she cheated, know you want to know you still got it, can't say no to an advance. The wife has kind of let herself go a little bit, and you don't love her anymore. So that's like reasons why you should be able to have an affair. What about for women now? Totally different. Number 6 reason. It's instant self-esteem. A guy likes me. Whoa. They're very emotional. Very emotional. So when a guy pays attention to them, it's kind of like, it just builds their self-esteem unbelievably. And the other one's kind of like that. The number 2 survivors is lack of intimacy in their relationship. Women thrive on emotions, hugging, cuddling, kissing, holding hands. It doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen anymore. And they want that emotion. And so all of a sudden, someone gives it to them. Number 4, feeling neglected, ignored. All of a sudden, noticed at work, noticed with friends, listen to this, even church. Even church. Dave came to me this morning and said, "I look beautiful." And he meant it. But I mean, that could just seem like, well, we don't know what that does to somebody that has a low self-esteem, to someone that is neglected at her home, to someone that's never had a husband that's told her that in the last year or 2. Now, here's a weird one. Number 3, not enough sex. Wait a minute. That's what the guy just said. But there's a difference. Women want romance before the sex. They want romance. They don't want just hop in bed. That's what the guy wants. But the woman wants more. So there's lack of sex because the guy's not doing anything to romance the wife. Now you can look at all these and say, oh, I don't. These are true. Number 2, it's a great exit strategy. Women have a hard time to let go. So they figure, if I cheat, my husband will leave. He'll leave. Because men are much harder to forgive women than women forgive men. Much, much harder. I remember telling my wife, you ever cheat? That's it. Be Tarzan, you Jane. That's it. So don't even think about it, honey. It's an exit strategy. And then the last one is revenge for the husband cheating. Remember we said 72% men cheat and 70% of women cheat, so when it's kind of like, well, gosh. If you're going to use it for that reason, then that's probably why it's one of the biggest reasons. Now, I want to talk about what's the signs of a spouse cheating. Now, these are just signs. These are not absolutes. So if you hear one, you don't just go, oh, I knew it. And then no one comes back to church next week. In Albert, we don't have to set up like 20 chairs. But these are not absolutes now, okay? But these are, and again, boy, I read all. Now listen to this. I got 68 pages that I copied off to my computer to come up with all this information, to calculate all this data. I was just like overwhelmed with it all. I wanted to go and cheat on my wife. No, I'm just kidding. Here's the signs. Here's possible signs. A sudden change. A sudden change, like all of a sudden losing weight, dressing nicely, getting into shape, going out without you. sudden change and you sense that it's not for you. That it's not for you. Another one, a desire to hang out with their friends separately. Remember, your friends are probably cheating too. So when you hang out with them, what do you think they're talking about? Number 3, excuses for staying away from home. Have to work late. I've seen a friend, even going to church, much less suspicious. Going to Bible study, we go every Wednesday night. Every Thursday night. I go to Bible study every Thursday night. Unusual phone activity. Erasing messages, even including erasing them in the trash. Be careful. They're hiding something. They're trying to hide something. Little things like a passenger seat adjusted differently. Taking out the child seat. My wife does that all the time. She gets in my bed. Who's in this seat? Why? It's different than where it was when I went in here last time. Oh, my girlfriend probably adjusted it. I don't know. Ask her. You know her. I should be making a joke like this. This is too serious to be taken lightly like this. But that's a sign. Clothes smelling of perfume or cologne. Reluctant to accept affection from you. And the last one, that gut level feeling. It's that gut level feeling that something's wrong. Now, here's what we'll talk about now. God gave us marriage as Christians. He gave us marriage as Christians. And He doesn't want adultery. He does not want adultery in ours. But sometimes we have to start over. We have to start over with most things. Most things, you have to having to start over. You had to start over with your lives. Some of you have to start over. You realize you're going down the wrong road and you realize, wait a minute, I got to make some changes in my life. It can be gossiping, it can be any of those sins that are out there where you just kind of go like, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is wrong. So it can be that same thing with marriage. Now here's one of the things you have to be careful of. Love is a feeling. It's a feeling. So when you're dating and you're starting to just see each other, that's a strong, strong feeling. I just melt when he's around me. I just melt when she, when he kisses me, it's like, I could die. And then 7 years of marriage, do we have to kiss?
Oh, yeah.
So listen, we have to start over. We have to start over on this now, okay? I'm certainly not going to have people raise their hands here. But I'm sure some of you are in a relationship now where you already know that your spouse has cheated at one point. You already know that. And there's a lot of scars there. There's a lot of scars there with that. I commend you that you're still together. I commend you that you're still together. My generation would have had a tough time with that one. Tough time. So I commend you that you're still together. But here's what you need to know. You need help. It's just like someone that has an addiction. You needed help. Couldn't do it on your own. Can't do it on your own. You need help to overcome some of this kind of stuff. One of the things you have to do is you have to learn how to all of a sudden meet the needs of your spouse. Men, you have to learn how to be romantic. Oh, that's hard. That is hard. That's why I come in when I see you having date night. And you're going on a date night. You didn't do that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But you're doing that now. And I see you walking in here holding hands now. It does something. Now, I won't ask about your sex life, but... well, let's ask it, no. But men, we have to learn how to be romantic. We do it when we're dating, and then it just seems like once we get the ring, it's kind of like, well, I own her now. I own her. It's just kind of like there's something wrong with that. And then women, you have to realize how men operate. We have to understand one another. Really understand one another. And I hope that some of these things here that you heard today got kind of registered a little bit with you, so you see the difference between a man and a woman. But you have to give in. Now, I've shared with this before. The worst thing you can do is withhold sex from this punishment. You might as well just give him the divorce papers. You might as well just give him the divorce papers because he's going to start looking elsewhere. 70% already are. You can't just do that. Now remember, there has to be some sort of a mutual agreement, and I believe that takes counseling in a lot of cases. It takes counseling to be able to do this, so that the husband can learn how to romance a little bit, and the wife can learn to respond a little bit, and not push back. I mean, you use sex for everything. I've shared this with before. It's kind of, if you want your husband to clean the garage out, all you have to do is make a promise. And he'll clean the whole darn garage. He'll paint the house. Yeah. But do you understand what I'm saying here now, though? We can just walk out of here now and just say, well, that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. Or we can walk out of here and say, wait a minute, something's got to change. Something's got to change for this to get any better. We've got to start making changes in our life. Now, I'm going to read one last one. I don't have it on here, Matthew 5:31-30. Where it talks about divorce. It said, it's been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you, anyone who divorces his wife except for marital unfaithfulness causes her to become an adulteress. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. What's up there? Don't use this as a reason. Even though the Bible says it, even though Jesus himself said it, don't use this now as a reason. Look, it's in the Bible. She cheated on me. He cheated on me. I have the right now to divorce. Jesus himself, they asked Jesus, why did Moses allow to get divorced? And Jesus said, Moses allowed because you're such hard-hearted, but that wasn't the intent from the beginning. The intent from the beginning is God said, what I joined together, don't let anybody tear it apart. Now, it happens, okay? Divorce happens for a lot of different reasons. A lot of you are divorced and remarried again. So it's not like I'm going to condemn divorce, but for those of you that are still married, you can save your marriage by making changes. And even if you've got a good marriage, you can make it a great marriage by just learning what your partner is like. Because we're totally different from one another. Totally different from one another. And we have to learn who our partner is so that we can give them what they're looking for, appreciate, and then when that happens, it just works. It just works. Now, people ask me all the time, my children ask me, how'd you and Mom stay together for 45 years? Let me give you the reason. Because I'm committed. I'm committed as a Christian to my wife. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had women come on to me, and it is just automatically no. Because I go in with that intent. I tell young people all the time, when you go on a date, if you haven't told yourself ahead of time, this is as far as I go, you're going to make some bad decisions. So what you have to do when you go on a date, you have to have rules ahead of time that says, this is as far as I go. Whatever that is. It's that way with me in my marriage. I don't flirt. I don't flirt with women. I don't allow women to flirt with me. Shut it off immediately. Now, I wasn't always this ugly. At one time, I wasn't that bad. But I never once allowed it. I just wouldn't allow it. Now, do my wife and I have a perfect marriage? No, or my kids ask, how the heck do you guys make it this long? The marriage account of couples, remember what they used to say. But I made it out of my commitment. My wife is divorced. My wife was married before. I have a child that I adopted from her first marriage. Robert, a lot of you know him. Her first marriage lasted less than a year. Our marriage lasted for 45 years and going strong. We're still going strong. I find this hard to believe. I'm going to say it. We have sex on a regular occurrence. I told you, if you don't want your kids in here, let them out. I used to look at my parents when they were in their 50s and wonder how they ever had kids. I couldn't visualize them having sex together. We understand one another. She knows that she can trust me 100%. She knows that. I'll share this with you, real quick, last story. When I was out on the road for 8 years, 10 years traveling, being at home only a few weeks out of the year. Now, the opportunities, oh my God, the guys I worked with were all the time trying to get me to go to a strip club. All the time they were convinced they were going to get me to go. It was like, no, homie, don't do that. Don't do that. Because I know what happens at those places, and it's kind of like I already made a decision. I'm not going in there. I'm not going in there. So when my wife would call me, like my son, when his wife would call, he'd be like, he had to be sick. She said, if I was having sex, she could smell it over the phone. He was convinced. And he was all the time like, no, honey, seriously. It was all, my wife, what are you doing? Oh, you caught me at a bad time right now. I'm with the maid. She said, she just laughed because she knew that. And then my son is, I can't believe you just said that. It's kind of, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. Nothing to hide, and she knows that. And I know that I can trust her. That's what you have to have, is that trust. Work at it. Work at it. It's worth working for. It's worth working for. That's what God wants.